All right, guys, we are back with another great interview. And my guest today, an amazing composer. He has a lot of works out there. He's award winning. He works with theme parks. He's been a part of the haunt scene. And he right now has an album which you can check out on Spotify and Amazon Music. It's called Purgatio. And I have right now the one, the only, the king of Halloween music, Chris Thomas. Chris Thomas, thanks for coming on, man.
So nice to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, absolutely. This album dropped on Friday the 13th. I mean, if it's not Halloween, it's the number two spooky time of the year, Friday the 13th. And ever since I heard you were going to come on our show, I've been jamming to it. And my first question is, where did the inspiration for doing one of these like spooky albums? Because this can play at a haunt, it can play at your home for ambient music, it can be anything you want for any spooky people. So where did the inspiration come from?
Well, that's what I hope it'll be used for, just whatever you imagine it to be. Because, some artists, write music for a genre. They're like, I'm a folk artist, I'm a rock artist, or like, I write spooky music. So you get like Midnight Syndicate guys, just like legends in this business.
Right.
They kind of write their own thing and just put it out. I come from this business as more of like a film composer, because that's where my career started. And as I
Right.
came over to theme parks and haunts, actually it was first haunts, which led me to theme parks later.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
uh, Everything on this album was commissioned for a ride or a walk-through immersive experience or some show for a Halloween park. So something at like Knott's Berry Farm or LA Haunted Hayride or anything like that. So unlike most artists who produce tracks of their own making, each of these was, we've got a scene, we've got a ride, there's insane murder clowns, they're going to do this and they're going to start here, and then 30 seconds in this happens, and then another 40 seconds later this happens. So these are all original scores for shows.
Right. Interesting to that, because I've seen an interview with you where you talked about when you make a score for a movie, you don't want to look at the script. You want to more so get it in real time so you can feel what it's going to be.
That's right.
Do you do that with haunts as well? Have you ever gone to a haunt and like, oh, this would be perfect, so let me make this?
Yes, that has happened, but in general, it's all reversed in this business. Because with film, they have to shoot something, before you get any visual contact with it. Storyboards only get you so far. But the thing is, in haunts and in theme parks in general, often nothing's been built, and you have to. And they've timed everything out, but it's all just designed. So they put a lot of time into mocking up how a ride's going to flow, what each spot of the walkthrough will look like. So that they go through a lot of artistic trouble up front, because as you're creating music, they're still tweaking designs and still building the thing out. And you'll make some last minute adjustments once you go see it, but often you have to see it after the fact. And so there's a lot of finger crossing. We really hope a lot goes right in this business. So
Right.
it's very different in that way.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. On the album, I personally, my favorite is Neon Nightmares, because I find like synth and a little more beat driven stuff. I do love classical, like the violins, and you use them for ghost, like more of the
Yeah.
ghost songs. But
Yeah.
like, do you have a personal favorite from the album that you gravitate towards?
The more so there's this part where you're assembling an album. I have all these tracks from all these different parks, and I have to pick just a handful to use, and it's a lot of music. Most albums aren't 32 tracks deep.
Yeah.
But every summer I'll produce like 70 tracks, and then after a couple years I have to just pick a few. And
Right.
this year, the one I keep coming back to is Bloody Barnaby's circus one. Just something about like the crazy clown laughter, the big orchestral tracks, and then it goes right into like kind of metally rock stuff. Like it doesn't know what it is at all. It's a giant
Right.
mess. Yeah, I like big messes.
Right. Right. No,
That's been a favorite. Yeah.
you have a lot of guitar riff in there. I mean, it just seems like chaos is within the song, but beautifully done. And this isn't even talking about like the title track of
Right.
where you have vocals, like you have a singer on. And for me, that song could be the theme to a movie. And what was the process of getting that done? Like, were you already aware you were going to have lyrics and then you have one of your team come in and do it?
Yeah, often I bring in my lyricist, Nikki Moeller, who's also one of my go-to singers for stuff too. She's got that freaky ability to both be a wordsmith to melodies I put down and can fit things to tunes that I write, and then also has the vocal training to come in and perform. In this case, it was the director of the show I was working on. And he and I have since actually produced a full-length musical. We did like a really spooky Christmas Carol adaptation that's opening again in Los Angeles this season. And he was like, "Hey, I've got this." It was for House of Spirits in Los Angeles, and he was like, "We've got this really dark number where like these winged angel-like death birds, have this real sensual dance, and then there's like this cannibalistic scene, and it's all very elegant. There's all these dancers and stuff, but then it gets horribly wrong." And so we started this tune, and I was like, when you describe it, I'm feeling this kind of pulse, dum, 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 almost like a heartbeat, and then. I was really attracted to this scale from India that has really interesting altered notes in it that just caught my ear. And so it's got a little bit of sounds from that part of the world driving the tune. And he was like, "Oh, here, let me adapt some lyrics to it." And he wrote out the lyrics along with some of the sketches I produced.
Right.
And so Justin and I kind of co-created that one.
Wow.
And so that's how it emerged. And we just started layering things in, and I would send him something with more guitars. He'd be like, "Oh, less guitars here. What about this section?" "No, slam full force for that. That's when this really horrible thing's about to drop from the ceiling."
Wow.
And, so it's back and forth.
It does seem like it's very, I don't want to say team oriented, but it is definitely a collaboration.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Every track. Yeah.
And is it like that making something like this for like you just said 32 tracks, so it's just collaboration, and you have a wild bunch of team that you have. Do you it seems like you play a lot of instruments. Like you have such a background. I mean, obviously being a composer, conductor, and do that, like is there an instrument that really you gravitate towards that really plays well in these kind of scenarios for haunts or even theme parks?
Oh, a single, maybe the most effective thing would be voices if I had to pick one, just because of how flexible they are. My training is on strings, so I'm a cellist by training.
Oh wow.
But cello isn't always the go-to.
Right.
Not for like for film, everyone's a sucker for it, but I need something darker and like grittier.
Right.
And what you can do with voices is pretty flexible. My personal favorite is getting on a pipe organ and just doing classic haunted pipe organ stuff. Like I'm mixing something I did a bunch of pipe organ recording for right now. Oh, wow. That'll probably be on next year's album. And yeah, I would say that. Yeah, my background's in strings, but it's not always the most helpful this time of year.
Right. Yeah, like, and trust me, we are not at the same level at all. I would play the violin from 5th grade to high school. Like I was in orchestra. So the cello definitely had that like it's deep and we'll F with you. Horror for me is it's done so well with music. What gravitates you to the horror genre, even in film, of composing music for it? Like, is it because it is more emotional than, like, say, a comedy film that really you don't notice the score for?
Yeah. For me, there's some nostalgia. I grew up really loving horror and all things Halloween. Like the first horror films I saw were with my mom and my grandma. And when I was really little, I was watching horror movies that were well beyond my age, but I would see them just laughing through the whole thing. Just the absurdity of some of the gore. So like right away, I realized, oh, it's funny because it's absurd. And and I just found it really enjoyable. It never scared me off. And so it was nostalgic. But as a composer, the farther I've gone along in my career, the more I've realized, oh, horror is a place where there's just no rules. You have moments that are very dramatic and emotional, but then they can be very vicious and scary. And all the rules about what you're supposed to do with sound break down. In fact, the farther you stray from conventions, the better. And it's a wonderful place to explore. You could write very tonal, recognizable music where, like, oh, that's a chord. It sounds nice next to that chord. Or I can just paint like just smears of lines across the page and say violins, cellos, brass, winds, smear. There's no pitches, just smear along with the shapes. And you get these horrible noise. So you're more sound painting. And it doesn't matter if there's notes. And you're using sound and texture to elicit fear or emotion. And just all the rules break down. It's like the laws of physics just fail all of a sudden. And suddenly you can walk through dimensions and, walk across the ceiling, move through a wall,
Right.
Dramas will limit you, but horror opens all the doors.
That's fantastic. I like that answer. Then growing up, do you have a score that really like spoke to you? And now that you're older and you do it for yourself, is there a score that maybe is a little underrated from your past that you're like, oh, now that I understand it, this is my jam?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I don't know that they're all in this genre.
Oh, that's fine. It doesn't have to be horror.
Yeah, kind of in this genre area, and it wasn't from like my childhood. It was kind of like high school into college. Mm-hmm. One of my heroes, who became he was one of my teachers and kind of a mentor for a while in Los Angeles, was Chris Young, who did like Nightmare on Elm Street and Hellraiser, just a lot of classic horror films that I grew up on. And I remember like when I told my mom, I was like, oh, I'm working with this notable composer. Oh, that's nice. This notable. Then I was like, hey, Chris Young. And like, oh my God. It was like the one person everyone in my family wanted to meet because we knew some horror scores. And he wrote a score for a movie called Bless the Child. Mm-hmm. And it was just before Exorcism of Emily Rose when he did that, which is also a great score, great film. Bless the Child was such exquisite music. I've never heard anyone reference it as like, oh, here's a great example of writing. But to me, it's just one of the holy grails as a film composer of this is how a composer should work. This is deep writing and really outdid the film, I think. And I just can't recommend that soundtrack enough. Yeah.
I'm going to have to look it up after this one. Bless the Child. That was the name of it?
Yeah. Chris Young.
Wow. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. Just go to the end credits and start there. And he writes this it's like a big concert suite. It's like Stravinsky could have written it.
Wow.
It was really, really impressive writing. It was spooky, but it's also drama. Same with Emily Rose. It was scary, but the movie was also a courtroom drama.
Yes.
And so it was the best of two genres and just an A-list cast. Amazing score. It was both just incredibly emotional and warm, but then just absolutely terrifying. I mean, legit out of my skin terrifying. Yeah.
And looking at like your career, you've done so much, accomplished so much. Like you've done all these orchestra conducting at like the Sydney Opera House and gone overseas. What is it like? Because I'll be quite frank, you're my first conductor to talk to, besides my teacher when I was learning. So it's
Ask
like,
away.
I'm very interested. What is it like performing and conducting any of those, like at the biggest arenas for orchestras? Like, what is that like, being able to control almost 100 people orchestra at the Sydney Opera House?
Monster venue. Yeah.
Yeah.
The worst part of going to a place like that, or for me, Carnegie Hall, I think was the scarier because unlike other orchestra halls, there's these like two side hallways you walk down from the front if you go through the front. And I remember first showing up there thinking, oh, wow, this is going to be so fun. I'm going to like see what it's like to hear my own stuff in this room. Right. But I made the mistake of not taking the artist entrance. I went through the front because I wanted to feel what that was like walking into the hall, like most people experience it. And the first time I was ever at Carnegie was to hear my own stuff. But the thing is, on the walls going in the sides are framed handwritten manuscripts from pieces of music that were played there or premiered there. And one of them is like, oh, here's a page from Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto. Here's John Adams. Here's Tchaikovsky. Here's all these, Gershwin to Mahler.
Right.
And you're walking by all these artists who premiered one of these works in that room, a handwritten page. And it's not like, oh, so-and-so from, like me from Pendleton, Oregon. I'm not on that wall, right? But I realized I'm in the pantheon of the gods, and I just freaked the hell out.
Right.
I almost just froze, and I was like, oh, this isn't cute. I was here, I'm just living my life. I'm caught up in just my own stuff. But suddenly I realized what I was about to do. Mm-hmm. And it dawned on me, oh, opening night, Tchaikovsky premiered a piece in this room when it first opened. Right. This is serious. And I just thought, what have I done? What have I done? And I realized I couldn't get out of it. But the thing is, when you go and you just focus on the music, then it's just about the music. And really, mm-hmm. whenever, and this is one of those things that kind of rolled into my stage fright conversation for other artists. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, you could be intimidated based on where you are and what it might mean. But the only thing that matters is the music.
Right.
And your feelings about that space mean nothing. Just give the best performance you can. Right. And with an orchestra, you hope you can control it, but you really never do. And because you can give people a sense of where the beat's going to be when it drops in, but 80 people will also resist. It's an unwieldy beast. And it can be difficult communicating exactly what you want. And you can get it across, but really it's also the right thing to do is also to let it go a bit and interact with them and just find the music and don't worry about being in charge, right?
Right.
Good musicians will find that zone with you. And then part of it is also getting out of their way. You can try to be a real authoritarian and make them do something right with you, but the best thing to do is let them do their thing. Step in and invite stuff, right. Like, yep, I know you've been waiting a long time over there. That's right, you're in. It's like just politely invite. It's like, you're right, you've been counting. Now we're together, and just invite and back away. Right. Bring your arms in some time. Let them even make the audience lean in. Get a little unspecific to the point where the orchestra has to lean in to really feel what you're doing. And if they do that, the audience will have to lean in too. And so, so part of it is knowing how to let go of stuff. And that for me was the biggest challenge for a long time.
Do you find that as rewarding, or if more than creating the music? Which process do you think is more rewarding?
I think sitting alone at the piano, getting into that space I've just spent my lifetime in here cultivating, when I really tap into something and that electricity really charges in and I discover the music and I realize this is what the music is. And I'm about to bring something I'm really excited about into the world. And even though it's missing a lot of stuff and I'm still on the hunt to put it together, looking for the pieces, to me, that's truly the most exciting. And it's such a different experience to just lose yourself in a performance and just blank out on stage, and suddenly you feel yourself cutting off an orchestra and you don't even remember what happened. That's a very different sort of experience. But for me, it's all just raw, charged excitement through the whole composing process. When it's not dread and terror, it's just excitement.
You mentioned it earlier that next year's album, are you already planning? Is it going to be Purgatio 2, or is it going to be a whole new thing?
Every year or two, I find there's kind of a general theme to what was recently going on in the haunt industry. And so every year it's a different album. And it's everyone tends to be looking for something different, but also sort of specific to that period. And Purgatio is the last 2 years. And so it's okay, well, I had 100 tracks to choose from. I chose just a few. And right now I've noticed there's some and I've got a lot of music already happening. So the next year's album is going to be pretty massive. Wow. So I already have to put out another one, or else I won't be able to release a lot of good music in time. So, and I also have an album concept I've been meaning to get to. Maybe next year will be too close, but in the last 12 years of working on haunts, there's a lot of music that we'd finished, approved, but then cut from parks. and I have this album called Lost Children. I've been working on, and I'm really excited.
Great title.
Yeah. All these babies I put my soul into, but had to get thrown out. And I thought, oh, I'm going to just release these one day. And some of them are just demos where I'm singing all the different monster parts. And it's just really hilarious. And it's really meant to just be, there's some great finished music, and there's a lot of demos that were almost going to be really good songs. And I thought, no, I'm not going to finish them. I'm just going to put them out with me. They're going to exist just how I left them.
Right.
And it's going to be all the rejects that some people might recognize. Oh, that sounds like it's for the Hayride. Oh, that sounds like Universal.
Right.
But we're discarded.
Wow. Is the process working with theme parks and like Knott's Scary Farm, Queen's Mary, is the process very like hard to deal with, or is everybody very team playery, welcoming? Is it a good relationship? I mean, you've done it for 12 years. I imagine it's got to be a good time.
Oh, it is. Way more mellow than film. Like, film is a really intense and scary place. I mean, these deadlines can get scary. I mean, you could be working on just massive scores, and even though it's technically a lot of time for those kinds of scores, it's still pretty close, because my problem is all of these jobs hit at once.
Right.
No one's ready for music till about the end of June, start of July, if I'm lucky, and it's all due by mid to late August or the very start of September. So it's no time. I mean, so my summers I don't get to do a lot. I'm just locked in a room.
Wow.
And we try to do a big like vacation in November, Then October, I'm just going to theme parks all over the country, or Canada or wherever, enjoying my work. And so I have a big party month coming up very soon. And then November, it's like, all right, downtime.
Right.
But these people are really great and not nearly as scary as working with film, honestly.
I absolutely love music in theme park haunts. And this show, Hunters Podcast, like we go to Universal Studios, Halloween Horror Nights. My favorite thing is that it's hours upon hours with this feeling, and it's really carried because of the music that plays. Like I said, I was listening to your album and I was just engulfed, like, put me back into one of these haunts right now. And you said it here, you go in October.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy going to these haunts? Do you find yourself sitting I'm at a scare zone listening to my music? Like, what's that experience like?
That's my favorite, as much, if not more, than being in a theater or hearing something on TV where I'm like, oh, that's me. There's how do I put it? The spirit is really different at a themed attraction. You're not passively watching with other people passively watching in a theater. Right. You're out there, and the object with these theme parks is you make the person going through it the main character. They're not just passively wandering. They're central to the story. Right. And you try to cultivate that sense. You're the star of this film. You're not just watching. And people have that sense. And then when you're in line, even, there's that anticipation of, oh, I'm going in, they're coming after me. That's the point. Right. And when you're out there with them, feeling the anticipation, watching them just like kind of jitter with excitement or terror, not really knowing what's awaiting them. Just feeling that energy is great, and hearing the music and going through with people and watching them respond. Because they're not just like, oh, that's nice, watching it on picture. I mean, they're physically being attacked, And
right.
It's really fun being there, watching people experiencing something magic where they're the center of the story. And that's a very different feeling, and it's by far my favorite, I have to say. Yeah.
Do they ever get you? Do you ever get scared at the haunts?
Oh, it can happen. Every now and then someone gets the drop, because with haunts, the magic formula is misperception. You walk into it's the whole scare forward theory, where it's like I made it sound so like academic. Oh, scare forward theory.
Scare forward.
It goes all the way back to Hobbes, then John Locke. The founding fathers reference.
The founding father of haunts, obviously.
Yeah. But it's this idea, you go into a space, you draw people's attention to one corner, whoa, scary thing rising over here, but
Right.
you want to draw their attention there because the actual scare is behind them now, and that thing draws their attention, but that thing coming up that they don't see scares them, and it'll reliably scare them in a direction.
Right.
And so yeah. Anyway, and I don't even remember why I went down that path. The whole
Oh,
scare
because
path,
do you get scared from
oh
it?
yeah, that's that. Yeah, you set that up properly, you'll get anyone. Sometimes you could smell it coming, but sometimes, man, they really get you. They so skillfully misdirect you that, like, I mean, they get the drop on me all the time.
Right. Oh yeah. No, I scream hardcore if it's done right. You're gonna get me, especially with music. Like,
it's a compliment.
Yeah, well, I did Insidious as a house, and the way the music works in that movie, and they put in a house, it works. So before I let you go, Purgatio, it's out. You can listen to this if you love theme park haunts and you want to get that feeling. I highly suggest the album. But now this part of the interview's for me, the last couple of questions, because one of my favorite things of all time, and seeing it on your IMDb, is like you've worked on Lost, and like, what was it like being in the room, just the music factor of working on something like that?
Well, yeah. So, like, Michael Giacchino would bring in some like help with like orchestration or conducting and stuff, and would send cues he was writing for a few days to some people like that too, because like he had to write like 26 minutes of music for an episode, and from the whole score, pick a load of double bass, you can't just get on notation software and punch out every note yourself that quickly in just those few days. So what you have to do is write loose lead lines from time to time and send it out to a crew who can stretch it out over the size of the group. And so, yeah, mostly it was just very fast, very rushed. Here's what you have to do. We have 3 hours to record. Make sure it can be done. And I mean, it's just like, you don't go a minute over. It is just a rush to get it done. And so some people might think, oh, wow, there's all this magic and we're contemplating character this or that. But it's like, no, 2.5 days from start to finish.
Right.
And you go fast. Right. And it was just like, in all TV stuff is just, and I just finished recording a bunch for another series, which I'd love to talk about, but I have a special agreement not to. And it was, you would think with music that classy and that kind of orchestral recording, they would have given me months instead of days to do it. And it was just a mad dash. And I'm kind of here at the temporary studio at home. So I'm recovering from a spine injury, actually. This summer.
My God.
And so I can't move around a whole lot. So I couldn't be in these other cities to record it. So I was remotely managing recordings in 5 different locations all throughout the day. And so you're not thinking too deep. You just have to move, and you just hope your musical instincts are there and they kick in and guide the process as needed. And sometimes I don't even remember the sound of something once I start getting the mixes back. I'm like, or like I'll be on a show like that and I'll be conducting, like, man, did we do this? Like, I don't even, like, it has my name on it, but I don't even remember. And you're like sight reading your own stuff as the baton's going.
Right.
And you're just like, it's a quick turnaround. So that's TV.
This is TV. This is that scary element between haunt and TV. I get that now.
The TV is 1,000 times harder. 1,000 times.
Right. Yeah. I hear that. My final question, and this again is just for me because I'm such a fan, and I saw this on your website, Chris Thomas Music, and I was wowed, and I've watched it 100 times, so I need to know a little backstory to this. Klingon style. I'm a huge fan of Star Trek, so when I saw this, I couldn't believe I was watching it for the first time, and then seeing on the credits, like, you were vocals.
Yeah.
So was that really you singing the Klingon style? My man!
Yeah, that. I didn't remember that was up there, but yes.
It's on your weird videos. Oh. I didn't go find this. This is on you.
Yeah. I have a wacky stuff page.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
I brought it back into light. I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right, because I've had that particular video. I've always had a weird relationship with it because it's like one of the few. So I've had 5 encounters since like maybe 2011 or 12 when that came out. And I was in other cities, Chicago, New York, LA, Madison, Wisconsin was the last one, where I'm just talking to someone in a hallway or on the street, and someone on the street walks up and they're like, hey, I've got a weird question. They're like, did you do Klingon style? And I'm like, what? It's happened 5 times. And
6, baby!
but those were just people in the wild who heard the sound of my voice.
Wow.
They were like, wait a minute, I know that sound. Did you do Klingon?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, that's accurate. And what happened was, I was doing all these comedy shorts for Comediva back in the day. I was friends with everyone at this company, and some big thing would happen out there, and then within a day they would put out some parody. And they'd be like, hey, we've got this Gangnam Style thing. Can you produce a track like it? And then we auditioned a bunch of people who seemed to have that low voice. And when we were auditioning others, I was like, no, can you get your voice like, and I would try to demo it, and they would try to do it, and no one was getting it. And the producers at Comedy were like, you're still the only one who can get us the sound we want. I was like, no, don't make me do this. And so eventually I was like, okay. So they had the writer who consulted with someone at the University of Long Beach, who I think helped create the Klingon dictionary. He was a linguist.
Yeah.
And they sent these people to my studio, and I spent 2 days and just recording like maybe 4 seconds at a time, because they were, this guy was like, no, hit like kupla, and it was like sculpting every word in Klingon to absolute accuracy, as far as accurate, whatever accuracy means in that.
To Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It took 2 days of just wrecking my voice to get it. And people who are like really in the Star Trek world are like, shoot, is it me or is that Klingon fluent? And it's like, I think it is. That's what he says. But,
Right. No, 100%. When I listened and watched it, I was like, he's knocking Klingon out of the park. Like, granted, I'm not that far deep to know exactly what everything means, but you are saying what I feel is Klingon.
Well, there's a linguist who's fluent in Klingon who would attest to this, and I was merely the instrument. But no, that is my voice on that, yeah.
That's fantastic. That is great. And what a way to finish this. The king of Halloween music, fluent in Klingon. You can check out Chris Thomas's Purgatio right now on every streaming platform, because you definitely want it now. Chris, thank you for coming on Haunters Podcast to talk about this album. I look forward to future work that you have going on in the haunt community.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Anything else you would like to plug before we let you go, like social medias and stuff?
I think you can find it all on my website. Everything's kind of like Chris Thomas Music.
Yeah.
So that's how you'll find it. And maybe I'll also mention this now. I'm planning to draw. I've been quietly thinking about it, but now I might say it out loud. I want to drop a single this year on Halloween.
Could you please?
Yeah, I've got something I've been sitting on since 2021, and I'm 30 seconds of dialogue away from having this giant finished like Halloween anthem. And it's like, I think I'm going to drop this thing on Halloween Day this year. So look out for that.
Look out for it. Chris Thomas, thank you for coming on, and we will see you next time on Haunters Podcast.
Sounds good. You take care. Thank you.